Hello everybody, this is Chaos with Chaos Esports Productions, bringing you another viewer cast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a PvZ submitted by our good friend Jaypee. This is actually, I believe, either the second or third game that I've casted from him. So he is in Gold League, trying to get, feel a little bit of pressure, not doing as much laddering up as he would like to, so we're going to be taking a look at this game he submitted. The main thing he wanted me to focus on was when do you commit to that final push when your opponent is going for Swarm Host type build. So I'm going to go ahead and go through 2 times through the majority of this because I want to focus on that kind of late game style. I haven't really talked a whole lot about the late game, so we'll just make comment about a few things here in the early game that we see and go from there. So yeah, so we get a really good scout out. We see that your opponent's going for a hatch first. So you kind of have the feeling that obviously his pool's going to be a little bit delayed, so skipping out on your first zealot is okay. And we're going to be going for kind of a really early expand build ourselves. Now we are looking at the new Star Station, which is actually kind of a cool layout. Basically, rather than being a 4-player map with forced cross-spawn, they just got rid of these kind of bases down here in the corners. They are now this really cool, like, starship-esque looking thing. It's kind of nifty. So yeah, so pretty much the same map. It does have kind of a different flow to it since it is a 2-player map now. You want to tend to expand downwards just because it's a lot easier and a little bit less to deal with as far as entrances to go into. Obviously, when you get into the super late game and down into this kind of bottom left-hand corner, you don't have to worry about, obviously, this choke here as well as this huge gap coming into what would be your third and your natural. So, so overall, we're sending out a probe scout. Haven't quite scouted the third, but otherwise things are going really well. Getting our probes up. You do take a fair amount of time to get your second gas, which I find a little bit odd. Usually once the natural's done, you probably want to start thinking about getting your second gas because that's when you want to start teching as quickly as possible. Because as of right now, obviously you've got the forge. I don't think you've started or done the upgrade. Let's take a look. Yeah, no upgrades so far. So definitely want to get this robot down just a little bit earlier. So I do want to make one quick comment about the buffs that were made in the newest patch that I believe came out either yesterday or the day before. So roach speed now is a little bit better. Let's see, I think it's an extra like 0.5 or 0.25 speed, so they definitely get a little bit of a buff, so we're probably going to see a lot more people going for that roach style play. Now, this first little assault here on the third base, let's go ahead and quickly pause it. If we look at the vision, obviously you've scouted the third. The biggest issue that I have with this push is you don't really know what your opponent's going for. Obviously you saw the natural, you never really got a good chance to see that pool timing, you have no idea about gas, so these are all a little bit concerning, especially on top of the fact that you still don't really have any tier 2 units out, so you're kind of going into this attack blind. So that's one thing that I'm a little fearful. So you're going to come in here, snipe off a queen, quite nice, starting to do a little bit damage to the third, but then you see all these roaches. Now, roaches against simply a gateway army generally overpowers it. Even if you mix in a couple zealots, it's still a little bit more favored towards the Zerg army. So going in with this small of a force and seeing this, you'd probably be better off just force fielding this off and just trying to run away and save as many units as possible. Obviously you killed the queen at the third, so he minimized production at the third, but overall I think this little assault is a little bit on the futile side. Plus, obviously, you just now saw burrows, so you know that he can burrow and recover all his health, and things are not looking good. So, a couple of these stalkers get left behind, left for the dead, and you're just going to continue out going. Now, you do take a very, very quick third behind failing that assault, which is obviously a little bit on the concerning side. Because you know he's got a whole bunch of roasters, and you know that the likelihood of him coming in counterattacking is probably pretty high. Luckily for you, he actually sits out here for a fair amount of time before he actually comes in. So you get some nice force fields off. Your Immortal doesn't get picked off. And actually, your Immortal pretty much saves you here, the amount of damage that that thing can do. Do you have an Observer? No, you don't have an Observer out here. So, obviously, you're a little bit behind. You can't deal with the burrow. But overall, the attack was fended off fairly well, and you're actually in a halfway decent position because your third is up fairly quick. So, kudos to you. Now, at this point, since you've only seen roaches out of him, let's see, I don't think you haven't really gotten any scout out. So, saving up some energy on a sentry, or even getting another observer right now, is probably what you want to be focusing on, figuring out what your opponent's doing, what his ultimate composition is going to be. Because obviously, with only roaches out, and you haven't really seen any hydras, you would think that the hydra would be the follow-up, but you just never know. So I think so far things are looking pretty good. You're getting your Colossus tech up. You're kind of moving into that late game start of phase, and all is going well. Now your opponent is taking a fourth, which is pretty much expected. Since he knows you're on 3 bases, you defended off his little assault. Things are looking good. You do plan a proxy pylon down here, but unfortunately this Overlord is pretty much already there to see it, so he's going to send over a couple roaches to deal with that. And now this is one thing, when your opponent already sees this and sends a little hit squad over to kill off your proxy pylon, warping in this many units to save it is probably a little bit on the I wouldn't recommend it, just because you never know whether or not he's sending more of his units, and if he is, this entire army that you just spent 1,000 minerals and 150 gas on is just going to immediately die. So that's just money wasted. So yeah, so that's going to clean that off. Pylon's going to get picked off, and you're going to actually chase this and run into a whole bunch of roaches, and your army is going to die. Awesome. You get a handful of roaches, but anything too awesome. So Colossus production out. I'd say that's pretty much in line with what you've seen. The biggest problem that you have is you really haven't scouted him. You don't know how far he is on tech. If you had checked out his upgrades, you'd see that you're a little bit behind. Not a whole lot. It's just basically the armor upgrade, and a little bit behind on the attack upgrade. So at this point, your opponent is going for swarm hosts. You haven't scouted that, actually. You have no idea that swarm hosts are on their way, so definitely a little bit of a bummer. And had you thrown out a hallucinated Phoenix and seen that that was a potential, you'd probably be more prone to have an observer already out on the field to help deal with that. Actually, oh, you have an observer here, so you're looking good. So this little attack goes fairly well for you. You come out of that pretty much cleanly on top. Oh, nice. Picked off the Viper. So yeah, so things are looking really, really good. Now, at this point, I would say that you would be hard-pressed to start thinking about doing a counterattack. Obviously, he picked off all your Colossus, so your higher tech is a little bit behind, but I'd say that overall, you're in a pretty good position to at least poke in and see what's going on with your opponent. Now, I'm assuming that the reasoning behind keeping your Mothership Core behind is to deal with the potential of a counterattack. Totally agree with that decision, but at this point I would highly recommend going ahead and adding this to your army and then starting to move over to do a little bit of an assault on him. So you were interested mainly in when do I do that final assault? Well, I would highly recommend you basically want to get yourself to either a maxed out position or very close to like one warp in round to being maxed out before you start thinking about doing your huge assault. You want to make sure your composition is kind of where you want it. Obviously, you know your opponent's going for kind of a Hydra, Roach, Swarm Host, and then some random Vipers thrown in. That's his overall composition. And you're getting Storm out, which I think is a really good kind of a round out of your composition. It gives you the flexibility of not only having the Colossus as your splash damage, but the Templar Storm definitely does a really good number on the Swarm Hosts. Wow, 17 Swarm Hosts. So yeah, so your opponent basically is just like going for super siege. Now I'm really surprised at why he focused on dealing with your fifth base, because personally, if I had been him, I would have probably set his swarm hosts up here, so that way he has access to both the third base and the natural, and then counterattacked with his Roach Hydra Force into the fourth, because then you'd have to make the decision on splitting up your army, and he could definitely a lot more effectively deal with you. But obviously you luck out, get some really nice storms off. Unfortunately that High Templar ate his own storm, but yeah, you kill off a lot of these swarm hosts really easily. And actually, that's what puts you ahead. So, right here is actually where I would say you're ready to go. You've got 3 Colossus. You're doing really good. You've got a pretty big bank that you could just do one big warp in. Let's see. You've got 3 Robos, which is okay, because obviously that's gonna, if all your Colossus die, you can pretty much insta remake them. But how's your gateway count? So let's see. We've got 4 there, 8 total, and 3 more on the way. I'd say that's a decent amount. Usually I try to shoot for super late game 14. Just that way you can build up your bank, do a full sweep of pretty much any unit that you want, depending on what kind of composition you're going for. Nice little ling run by that you catch by holding this watchtower. And yeah, so at this point, yeah, taking this army and going and just throwing yourself at the natural is probably, that's the time. Once you know that you've killed off the majority of his main unit, that is when you want to strike and kind of go for that killing blow. I highly recommend keeping your Mothership Core with your army when you get into later games, just because that way you have the utility of doing a photon overcharge here, but I think recall is going to be something that you mainly focus on, especially in the late game. Oops. So yeah, I think at this point, now is the time you should be going and attacking. As far as scouting-wise, you know that he hasn't taken a 5th base. Ooh, I see the nice little Ridge Force. You know that he hasn't taken a 5th base, so you know that you're ahead of him in bases, which means his economy, while he might have a huge bank, he's not going to be able to remax and do the things that you're going to be able to do with your army. So he goes in, tries to do a whole bunch of damage. Unfortunately, he doesn't bring any detection. You come in here, you more or less take out the majority of his army, and I believe this is where you more or less, he calls it GG. So yeah, so I think overall, the progression of the game and how things flowed was very well done. I think as far as timings and when should that final attack go, that needs to be based on where you feel with your composition. How comfortable do you think that you can walk into his bases and catch him right before all of his units pop? Because once you make a fatal blow to his army, you got to realize that it takes time for his units to rebuild. So even if he can instant remax, you know that he's not really going to be able to deal with you if you're right in front of his face. So you come in here, Archons do some pretty decent amount of damage, you blink in, take out a lot of these Broodlords, and that is GG. So, feel free to leave any comments down in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you guys enjoyed this viewer cast. Feel free to send me one of your replays. There's an email in the description, gives you all the details on how to get featured here on the channel. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to catch all the other StarCraft action. Also, feel free to hit that like button as well as share with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. And yeah, I think that's all I've got. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next game.